Everybody, welcome to this December meeting of Budget, Capital, and Personnel. We have 3 members in chambers, and that's quorum, so we're going to move forward. I know that Mr. Shurtleff is going to be a little late. Have we heard anything from Rich John? Okay, well. All right then, meeting called to order. We have minutes to approve. Can I get a motion on that? Amanda moves, Mike seconds. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none. Are we ready to vote? All in favor? That's unanimous. Changes to the agenda. I think we have several resolutions that aren't in the agenda packet. Let's see. Changes in positions for various departments, resolution to adopt a volunteer benefits program, a resolution approving the blue-collar collective bargaining agreement, and since these were all submitted by staff, we do not need to vote to add them to. Correct. All right, great. So those are added. Do we have any public? It doesn't look like it. Nobody ever comes to see us.
Sometimes.
I feel hurt. All right. County Administrator's Report. Hello, Lisa.
Hello. I just have a couple of items of interest to this committee. First, the budget director position in county administration is now posted, and that will be posted through January 7th. So we're interested in.
Sorry, through when?
January 7th.
7th.
Thank you for the restoring this important position, and we are looking forward to review application materials from qualified candidates. Second, in case you had heard or read, the federal government is again revising the interim final rule around the ARPA program, American Rescue Plan Act. One item that does pertain to us and our operations is that they are revising the definition of obligation, in meaning obligating funds, and wanting that they're defining it as an order placed for property or services and entering into contracts, subawards, and transactions requiring payment. So this will be moving forward. It won't apply to anything that we've already done, but moving forward after 2024, for any spending of ARPA funds, it will essentially require a contract. So what we've done in the past with allocating funds for lost revenue in our budget, that wouldn't qualify, but thankfully, it will apply on a going forward basis. And I think that Samantha and Norma have already been looking into it quite extensively, and I think it will only apply to our capital projects, and I think that we will be pretty much all set. So it's really just to inform you that staff has been looking into it and making sure that we're where we need to be to make sure all of those ARPA funds are obligated correctly. And then other than that, I think we have a couple of resolutions for consideration at whatever time you want to consider them.
If you'd like to consider them now, that's fine.
Sure. So
blue collar agreement?
Sure. The blue collar agreement is one that was added, and it's not included in the packet, but it's included in front of you on the desks. I think I'd mentioned it at the last legislature meeting. The blue collar unit voted on this last week. It passed by an overwhelming margin, and now it is it's up for the legislature to vote and to ratify.
All right then. So we have the 2023 blue collar agreement ID 12118. Can I get a motion on that?
We need a motion to add it to the agenda.
No, we are.
Okay.
See, you missed all the exciting stuff.
See,
I'll second.
All right, so Mike moves and Rich seconds. Any discussion?
Sent us this in advance, so good to have a chance to review it.
Questions? Ready to vote? All in favor? Thank you, that's unanimous. What's your
Thank
next
you.
one, Lisa?
The only other one that we have from administration, I believe, is it's on the agenda packet, resolution, technical assistance, single occupancy housing ID 12081.
Okay, can I get a motion on that, please? Thank you, Lee, seconded by Rich. And I wanted to be sure I understood this. This is only for single occupancy. Are we going to have a different contract for the other pieces?
Nope.
This
I
is
think
it?
this is all we'll need, yep.
All right, well, that's good news. $10,000 is not so bad. Any questions? Ready to vote? All in favor? Thank you, that's unanimous. All right, then. We have lots and lots of juicy info from finance, so Lori, take it away. Tech's wonderful till it isn't.
Okay, which one's this? Okay, I think that's as big as I can make it. So,
Good.
I have the third quarter sales tax report. So this is through the end of September. The highlights from the comptroller's office, and this is from their newsletter, was that the local government sales tax collection increased 3.6% for that quarter across the state. Of that, 43 of 57 counties had an increase, with Allegheny, Livingston, and Saratoga with the highest increases, and Lewis County with the largest decline. Contiguous counties to Tompkins, Cayuga had a decline of 3.7, Cortland 2.5, Tioga 5%, Schuyler 9.5, and Seneca 1.2. According to their report, Tompkins County overall sales tax increased by 2.5%. You'll see that's a little bit different than the number I calculated as we go through. I think it has to do with the fact that they may be either including or excluding the last week of the month. I think there's just a timing difference there is what's making the difference. It's pretty close, so I'm not overly concerned. We'll see. I'll keep an eye on it and see if there's something going on. But I'm going to rely on my numbers because that's what we have. We actually received. So just want to point that out.
Thanks for clarifying that, because I was a little confused.
So this next screen is the total sales tax. So that's counties, municipalities, and cities all together, just for the third quarter, year over year. And that change was an increase of 1.87%, or just over $395,000. This next one breaks it out by type of municipality. So the towns and villages increased 4.26%, or $207,000. The city of Ithaca had a decline of 0.82%, or $35,000. And the county's increase, just for the county share, is 1.88%, or an increase of $223,000. Let's see, this one is year-to-date, so January through September, and this is all.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Back one slide. Did you say that the city, I'm having trouble reading.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That was a negative?
Yeah, the city of Ithaca is a negative 0.82%,
Okay,
under 1%.
thank you.
But there's a pretty remarkable increase in the towns and villages around. So
Yeah, that's interesting.
would that reflect a change of where people are shopping?
Perhaps. The comptroller's office did mention that this quarter is a quarter that they do their adjustments. So it could have something to do with that as well.
Also remember that Tops moved out of the city. They were here last year.
Oh, yeah. So you think one grocery store would make that much difference? That's pretty amazing. Okay, thank
I
you.
don't know.
Well, it's not only, well, I guess it's subtracted in one area and added in another, so it makes the town look better, or the village, yeah.
So this one is the total sales tax January through September for all types of municipalities. You can see we're pretty well consistent from this year to last year on all sectors. This one is the sales tax distribution, again, January through September, but broken out individually so you could see the actual numbers and percentage increases year to year. So it's 4.8% for towns and villages, 0.56 for City of Ithaca, and 2.89 for the county, and that's January through September. And then this last one is your historical comparison from 2019 through current. This table at the bottom shows the actual numbers. The graph at the top is obviously the graph. I will note that we are 6.13% over the 9-month budget, but we are at 80% of what we have budgeted for the year. So for 3/4 of the year, that's very good. January, June, and September are the highest months, while February, April, and May were below budget. The trend appears to be decreasing in October and November, and typically bumps up a little bit in December. And that is the sales tax report.
Thank you, Lori. That's very thorough. Does anybody have questions for Lori? Rich?
I guess I have observation that we've been very fortunate in seeing pretty steady growth in our sales tax, and it doesn't seem to be the case this year. And hard to predict what that means, if anything, but seeing Schuyler going up 9-point-something% and us at 2.5, I don't feel thrilled. I don't know.
It's hard to draw any conclusions in the middle of the year.
Well, I'm always skeptical, too, that you see year to year such uniformity in sales tax revenues in terms of the slope of the graph.
Right.
That I always think New York State is doing something. You know, I just.
It never hurts to be suspicious, Rich.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it could look like that without some, I don't want to say
Something
manipulation.
hinky?
Well, just that they're holding funds and they're releasing them at certain times. And I don't know.
Well, Lori did acknowledge that they were doing some sort of adjustment during this quarter, so I don't think your suspicions are unfounded.
I don't think it's everybody goes out and buys a car in September, for example. But year on year.
Now, when the new models come out?
Yeah.
I'll add one in November and one in December for the business, so maybe that'll reflect in the last quarter.
Well, we must thank Lee for bailing us out. Lisa.
I was just going to say, to give ourselves a pat on the back in terms of where we budgeted for 2023, that I think it's right on the money, which is nice to see. Though in previous years, we have benefited from the surplus that, we budgeted conservatively, and, the surplus went into our fund balance, but we're going to be right where we want to be, I think.
Is there a slide that reflected that, how close to budget?
I have it noted on the top of this slide on the title. It was the only place I could fit it in. It's 80% of budgeted.
Okay, yeah, you mentioned that
And that
earlier.
one line, I think it's the green line, that kind of goes straight across is the budgeted amount, and that's notated at the bottom. If you can see on the farthest right column, third line from the bottom says 42,557. That's the budgeted amount. And then I just divided that by 12, so that's why it's a straight line across.
So 80% at 75% of the year.
Yes.
Yeah.
This worked so well when we got our black and white copy. I'm like,
Oh.
what?
Yeah, certainly if there's a way to use a larger font, I'm having difficulty reading, but I did look at this before the meeting and thought that we're certainly going to make our budget, which is great. And in prior years, when we were really conservative and we just blow it away, you'd feel good, but from a budgeting standpoint, that's not what you're supposed to do with your budget. So this is better, a little scarier, but yeah.
The closer we are, the better we're budgeting. That's, I think that's right. So anything else on sales tax? Mike?
I just wanted to say that I have the same question that Rich had. You know, it seems strange that the city would be not doing as well as the other local areas, particularly since all these stores have been moved down to Southwest. They've raided the mall. And I don't know where gas is being sold, but I think they sell a lot in the city. There are a lot of gas stations down there. It doesn't seem the way it ought to be, although, Lori, you're exactly right. They do adjust these things at the state. I can remember one year, quite a number of years ago, when we got an extra $1 million. And it was because of some large store that had been reporting that it was in a different county.
Oops.
So we were the beneficiaries on that. That doesn't happen very often.
Well, I wonder, when we do the online shopping sales tax, does that also get allocated according to where the purchaser lives?
My understanding is that they tell us that they do that.
Well, so another possibility is that people in the more peripheral areas of the county are shopping more online and not bothering to go down into the city to shop.
Good point.
Yeah, I think there's countervailing things happening here. One is these new stores opening that were up on the hill, and that should improve the city's numbers. At the same time, I have real concern about the policing and the safety or the perception of safety for people who are reluctant to come downtown, which I think is a really corrosive thing, and the city should be, in my mind, trying to make sure that issue, that perception is addressed. I hope that with the new police chief, Lee will feel comfortable shopping for that next car here.
I think another thing the city does wrong is its parking policies. No, I mean, seriously, you can laugh about it, but I know a lot of people who are just, I'm not going to go down there and pay to park and shop. So, yeah, it's real. But not our circus, not our monkeys. Shall we move on to casino revenue?
Okay, so once again, this is for the third quarter through September for the casino revenue. This graph shows year-to-date historical from 2017 to 2023, and it starts the left side's to 223. So you can see that this year has been pretty consistently hovering around 600,000, and that's slightly higher than the first two quarters of last year. Let's see. This next slide shows you the exact numbers that are on that graph previously. So you can see that, again, those numbers are just over 600,000 for each of the quarters this year. Slightly higher than the first quarter of last year and just a little bit below for the second and third quarter of last year. This one is comparing it to budget. So through September, we are at 87% of what we have budgeted. We budgeted 2.1, and we're at 1.8. So again, for 3/4 of the year, that's spot on budgeting. And then I show you what last year's was, which we knew was a little bit off.
A little bit.
This one is the revenue by casino. The top line is Del Lago, and the lower line is Tioga Downs. You can see they're both relatively consistent over the year, kind of flat. I put in that dotted line to show you the trend, that it's pretty flat, but it is increasing ever so slightly. And I did, and I know this is an informational item, I did also include the comptroller's report on the casino revenue, included in your packet, if you would like to read that over. It talks about concerns going forward with, particularly with sports betting and those sorts of things, and new casinos being opened throughout the state, so that could affect the casino revenue.
Do we have any questions for Lori? Mike?
To that point, I see they've extended the negotiation time for the Sonic Indian Compact. They had tried to put through a casino in Rochester, and that got a lot of pushback from the Rochester area state legislators. And if they put a casino there, that's going to really tap Del Lago. And as you say, there's other places, New York City, they're getting ready to build casinos there. Why would they drive upstate when they can go into downtown, unless it's the congestion tax they're afraid of?
I had a hard time understanding how they could justify Sullivan County as being upstate.
Well,
In this
I think it's
report.
because it's the old, it used to be the resort capital of the Catskills.
Yeah, they did mention that they were trying to renew tourism.
That may be that,
in
but
area.
I just have always said, don't rely on these revenues.
And we
Don't budget
don't.
them all, because we can get hit, just like we did in the pandemic.
Well, I also found it interesting, the comptroller's report mentioned more than once the importance of having a reserve policy. Just another red flag for some of my colleagues who don't seem to be really happy about having a reserve policy. I think it's really important. So, anyway.
It all comes back to fund balance.
Well, there are reserves and there are reserves, but I mean, when we get to the point where we talk about that, which I guess is in our next report, I think it's worth noting that we could spend $55 million in the next 3 months on just normal operating expenses, which makes our A fund look not quite so rich as it would appear at first glance. So do you want to go ahead with cash and cash?
Actually, if we could stay with the casinos,
Sure.
stay in the casinos for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I didn't think you were the type, Rich.
I know. I was trying to extrapolate for the fourth quarter. It doesn't look like it tracks what sales tax does, where sales tax in fourth quarter is more. That's that's Christmas selling season. People don't apparently go to the casinos more in the fourth quarter, at least historically, if you look at it. So that would suggest that we're going to hit budget, but not by much. We're not going to, is that your thinking?
I think we're going to hit it spot on.
We're not going to go, we're not going to see any windfall there.
Right.
Some of our number, we're talking about how this end of year, we're going to see a huge bump in sales tax and casino revenue. And we're not losing, but I don't see us going ahead. The other thing I thought was interesting was the comptroller's discussion of the state policy changes regarding sports betting. And given, you know, I was trying to make sense of what they said here, but there seemed to be a small impact, they were saying, on local revenues, tax revenues as a result of exempting sports betting. I think it was in the $300,000 less in local government gaming taxes. But given the advertisements on television for sports betting, I find that really hard to believe. The NFL is hitting sports betting really hard. I don't think they would be advertising like that if it was not gigantic flows of money going through sports betting. And if that's the case, you would expect that there would be a bigger number than $300,000. I guess.
But the NFL is advertising nationally, and I don't know what other states' laws are relating to how many opportunities you have for legal sports betting in all 50 states.
Yeah, I was wondering if this is just sports betting that's done at the casinos, or is it, because there should be state revenue for sports betting, I would anticipate.
The way I understood it, and I could be wrong, but the way I read it was that the sports betting is now going to be allowed online and you don't have to go to the casino. And being a resident of Seneca County, I can tell you Del Lago's biggest, well, I don't know for a fact, but I can tell you by going into Del Lago, the sports betting area is the most crowded all the time. So if they don't have to go there anymore to do it and they can do it online, I'm thinking that's going to hurt Del Lago's revenue, but I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah, this would suggest that sports betting is a very small part of their revenue, but my suspicion is that if the casinos lose out on this stream, they'll be in serious trouble.
Well, there was a real extensive article in yesterday's Syracuse Post-Standard, and Turning Stone has converted part of the nightclub areas into specifically sports betting place to go, and it told how many millions of dollars were invested into it. So that must be the way they're coming back to try to hold on to that. But if you go into Syracuse paper, it really gives a good description of what the state's policy is towards sports betting. Just yesterday.
I should think the bigger potential threat is if they somehow or another enact some sort of law that allows you to basically play slots or other things that ordinarily you would have to go and to the casino to do. Because, I mean, clearly it's all those people that sit there and pull that lever or punch the button all day long that are really generating the lion's share of these local taxes. I don't understand if the whole point of this was to create revenue for the state and local governments, why the state keeps changing the law in ways that negatively impact.
Yeah, these state policy changes, I would assume the state's probably taking that money.
Well, they get theirs, they just screw us out of ours. Yeah, that's probably true. Anyway, are we done?
Yes, we're done, sorry.
All right, go ahead, Lori, for your last phase.
Okay, so this is the cash investment report as of September 30th. And let's see, let me make it bigger. So this screen shows the cash balance by bank. And as you can see, our largest balances reside with New York Class, that investment pool we spoke about before, Tompkins Community Bank, and JP Morgan. And we have a total of $137 million in the various banks. This slide breaks it out by fund, where the money resides in our general ledger. So most of it is in the A fund, the general fund, followed by capital projects, and thirdly by the trust fund. And I just want to remind you that that trust money is really not our money. It's money that belongs to someone else or that we owe to someone else. So that's a pretty significant amount of money that is included in our totals, but not really ours to spend, so to speak. This one is the cash balances by investment type. So you can see that most of our investments are in that investment pool at New York Class. We are earning a very good rate of return there, and it's 100% liquid. Followed by money markets, and then we have quite a bit in checking. We did talk about at the last quarter investing in CDs, and we have done that. It took a little bit of an effort to get that ball rolling, but in October we have now invested in several CDs. So you'll see that on the next report, next quarter.
What rate are we getting on our CDs?
I believe they're different, but it's anywhere between 4 and 5%. This shows the rates in September of what we were earning on various investments. So the investment fund was earning 5.229%, the New York Class, and money markets were doing at about 3.5% to 4%. And there was a few stragglers that were below that. I will let you know that our team met with all of our banks and had discussions about those rates, and many of them have now increased them. So on our next report, you should see those go up a bit. Let's see. This shows our monthly cash balance. So the average is 142 million. The high being 156 million and the low being 118 million. And this is the interest earnings for the year. And it's showing that the average is 263,000. In year to date, we have 2.3 million earned in interest. And you can see that is going up, went down a little bit in September, but I anticipate that will go up again in October because, as I said, we're now doing CDs and have increased the rates on money markets. And this was just, I don't think I changed this from last month, but just reminders, fund balance does not equal the cash balance. Cash flows up and down based on what's going on throughout the year. We are trending average monthly expenditures of over 18.6 million every single month. And these figures do include restricted cash, such as reserves that we have on hand, and as I mentioned, money that's held in our trust account.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Lori? Mike?
I had a couple of questions. One, you mentioned the insurance reserve. How's that reserve doing after, I know we had a big hit this year in that. Are we recovering that? What's going on with that?
So that reserve in 2023 had, don't quote me on this, but like $809,000 in it, roughly. The payout was $1 million. We ended up paying that out of the general fund and did not use the reserve.
It didn't go into the insurance reserve?
Right.
Okay, I didn't know that.
We were planning to refund it and get that back up to $1 million, but that has not happened yet. So we're currently sitting at the 800 some mark.
We haven't funded any of the reserves except for the debt service reserve, which we funded in the budget process. And we will probably be funding those reserves and seeing that resolution next month.
Well, I would just say that I kind of see that as an example of maybe why that insurance reserve ought to start building up to a higher level, because we could get more lawsuits. We never know. And some of the awards that are being given by courts are really up there in places. The other question I had, about this time of year, sometimes TC3 comes to us and needs an advance payment. Are they doing that this year? Have we heard anything on that?
I have not been approached for that.
Good.
We do have a resolution on our agenda for funding our contributions to TC3, but there's nothing about an advance payment.
3 or 4 years in a row, I think we had to give them their January payment in November, December, something like that.
I just want to weigh in and say that that $101 million in our general fund looks really juicy, but if you think about the fact that that's as of September 30th, so we've got 3 months of over $18 million a month in operating expenses. You look at our agenda today, and we're doling out money hand over fist. We haven't funded our reserves yet. We've got to do that in January. Sometimes, although I really appreciate the fact that we get these numbers reported to us fairly regularly, I think it sometimes leads us to believe that we're rolling in it, when in fact, we're doing the right thing and being conservative about our spending, but we're hardly rolling in it. And things can change in a heartbeat. So, Lee?
I don't want to create work for anybody, but to illustrate that, you might someday, when there's lots of time, create a graph that shows a cash flow here historically over 3, 4, 5, 6 years that shows where the bulk of the income comes in January and February, and then really the rest of it is sales tax coming in. I don't think you have in a little bit of casino revenue, but that's $2 million out of 230, so it's not going to, be a big amount. But you could almost show a cash flow against a revenue versus the $18 million a month that you're seeing on average, and that, that might be a good educational piece as we get into these back and forths during the budget season.
Yeah. Well, just the fluctuation between, what did you say, 118 million low and 157 million high. What's 30 million here and there, right? And the fact that in one of our resolutions today, we're talking about, basically lending ourselves money for a road project against the receipts of bans or bonds. We want to keep ourselves in a position where we can do that no matter what comes up. And I think sometimes some of us forget that. So, thank you, Lori. Thank you for all of these reports. I was just blown away by how well informed you keep us.
I try.
Do a great job. Thank you. Okay. Report from the incomparable.
Oh my goodness. I'll try my best to live up to that. Okay, we have a couple of informational reports, and I've brought along my team to start. Larry is going to provide you with some data from the HR processes that we began a couple of months ago, and then Heather will follow up with some information about our 2024 employee picnic. Trying to get ahead of things. Larry?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to run through some stats that were asked for here a couple months ago. So these stats are covering October and November because we had missed the October ones. Their agenda was too full. So staff totals, we have about 810 staff that are on our payroll, along with 100 election workers this year. Right now, there are 84 jobs posted on our website, and 33 of those jobs are for county departments. The rest are for the schools and municipalities. Our outreach for the last couple months has been classrooms, visits, and speeches, and mock interviews at BOCES and at Groton. I'm doing Lansing schools this week. And then outreach has also been with local businesses and partnering with some of the not-for-profits in the area. As far as applications for this 2-month period, we've processed 739 applications in 2 months, which last year at that time was only 561. So we've had quite an increase there. We've also posted 22 civil service tests. which resulted in 169 applications for those. And 30 of the tests were given with 108 people in attendance. As far as onboarding, that period also included the election workers, and it was 112 people were onboarded into our system, and 10 people were offboarded. Along with that, we had 24 people sign up for our retirement and our benefits. Open enrollment was 156 people. And benefit leaves, 73 people were processed through our leaves programs.
So what do you do in your spare time?
I'll just hang out, play games, you know.
Yeah, that's impressive. Do we have any questions for Larry or Ruby on this? Lee?
So, kind of curiosity, you mentioned 33 positions posted. Would some of those be continuous status, continuous posting, or are they actual positions that are vacant where you're looking to fill after retirements or what have you, promotions?
So we've had to change that continuous recruitment. We only have a couple that are continuous recruitment now, but New York State passed some new rules, I think it was September, about posting jobs and salaries, and they really tightened up what you could post and how you could post. So we've really limited and cut that back. So most of those are positions that we have in different departments.
What would you say the turnover is right now? Is it significant? Are you looking at a lot of retirements or just kind of run-of-the-mill, ordinary?
It's pretty average, 10 people in the 2 months that we've offboarded, and those are retirements or left for other employment.
So we're not seeing a mass exodus then?
Too many for me, but no.
Okay, thanks.
Rich?
So my rough math is we've got about a 4%, 4 to 5% vacancy. Is that, if we've got 30-some positions and there's 710 employees right now?
810, but
But you said 100 are not us.
100 are the election workers.
Okay.
Are they included in that 810?
No, not in that 810. There was 100.
So it's actually
election
910, basically.
We're
We have
at
810 permanent staff plus the 100,
We're
so.
at 810 employees? I've been sitting there in my head at 740 maybe.
These are the numbers Tom gave me this morning from our payroll
Okay.
system.
We've grown. Is it, yes? I didn't think we had added that many headcount.
So it does do include
Why we
the
have
JTP.
reports, Rich.
Yeah. It does include a few of the JTPAs through our OET.
Sorry, JTPA OAE.
Come on, Rich, come on.
I know.
You're lucky
Office
Andy's
of
not
Employment
here,
and
Larry.
Training, so they're youth employment programs where the youth are paid through the county. Those are
Okay.
what the JTPAs are.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions for Larry? Thank you very much.
I did have a follow-up for Lisa then, or, well, budget. What was our vacancy rate we were looking at for our budget? Was it 2%? All right, so we're running ahead of that. Okay, thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to talk a little bit about next year's picnic. So since the picnic began in 2016, we have been using Stewart Park as the place that we hold the event. For the last few years, we have paid to Stewart Park $740 per day to rent the large pavilion. So for the last year and a half, we have been looking for a new location. We have scouted out several different state parks, and one that we are considering for 2024 is Treman State Park. Now, with that comes a little bit of change. It is less expensive for renting the pavilion. However, they do have an entrance fee of $9 per car. So to offset that, by changing locations, the biggest change is that currently, using Stewart Park, we are limited to food vendors. They have to have special permitting through the city in order to be a vendor in the city of Ithaca for food trucks. Currently, that list is 10 vendors, and they tend to be a little bit more expensive than some others. By going to Tremont State Park, it opens up hundreds of options for us for food vendors, and a lot of those options are a little less expensive, so we would be able to offset that price per vehicle by our vendors. Also, encouraging those employees that have Empire passes or to car share to come to the picnic. But the biggest is just access to more vendors and hopefully offsetting that.
So would we pay for people to park?
We would give employees a coupon that they would give at the park office, and then we would pay at the end. We would have
More food trucks.
hundreds of
Okay.
options, yes. Correct, yeah.
Informational, okay, thank you. Any questions or comments for Heather?
Great job on the picnic.
Thank you.
I think it's really been well done in past years.
Yeah, the picnics have been super. Everybody loves them.
We have seen a steady increase over the years. Our first picnic was 180 employees, and last year was 504.
Out of 810.
110.
And you've really promoted an enormous amount of interest in cornhole.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right, then. I guess we can move on to our resolution. Oh, workforce diversity and inclusion.
I was just going to give a brief update on the performance evaluation. but
Oh,
we can-
yes, please.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No problem. And it's informational as well. The committee reviewed the job descriptions, and of course, there were no changes, which isn't surprising considering that we've had revisions in the last couple of years for all 4 of them. I've developed the evaluation tool that is similar to the one used for the department heads, but I've redefined the performance areas, knocking them down from 9 proposed to 6. The next step is for the group of legislators to develop specific expectations per performance area. And we're going to do that via email because meeting this last month or so has been almost next to impossible. But I will outline the performance areas and what's expected under there for the legislators to actually give us specific expectations that we can place on each performance evaluation tool. I'm also in the process of pulling those appropriate questions from the previous 360-degree surveys and adding more specific questions. So there will be a self-evaluation portion. There will be an evaluation from, I'm not sure if it's going to be the committee established for that or the entire legislature, as well as the 360 surveys.
I think that if there's a survey for legislators to fill out, since there's only 14 of us, I think we all should have the opportunity to participate. I don't think a smaller committee should.
Then the question is, will there be a smaller committee to have regular routine oversight and check-ins?
Yeah, I mean, there also in 2 years, there will be 16 legislators.
Well, still, I think for a direct report, everyone, I mean,
should have part in the discussion, but it does make sense that a smaller group is like the contact point for
Right.
having a discussion together.
Yeah, I agree. And if anybody else has any thoughts on this? Oh, squirrel?
Just whispering over there.
Oh, okay, I thought maybe you, okay.
And all of this will be placed in writing and provided to the committee. Just wanted to give you a heads up on that.
That's great. It would be nice to be able to see that in January, but I can understand at this time of year, it's unlikely to.
We will have the format and
Oh, great.
hopefully the expectations, which is the biggest part of it, because we're trying to identify specifics under each program area so that the direct report and the legislators will have something to measure success by.
because this has been like a challenging thing for as long as I've been here, I mean, I wonder if it makes sense that every January, the chair appoints a 3-person committee who works on this with the director of HR, and they meet quarterly, they, meet with whatever, help move the process along, that's their only goal in that committee, is to work through and make sure in that year the 4 performance reviews get done. I mean, I think we have to make some sort of concerted effort that somebody is responsible for this each year.
That's a fair,
I concur.
yeah.
That if we don't do that affirmatively, we will have what we've done in the past, which is nothing.
Nothing?
Well, we've had a variety of different things,
It's
but
sporadic and.
it's sporadic, and we haven't had a real plan. But if now we're going to actually have material to work with and a process, and we know what we're doing, if there's 3 legislators who are just assigned to this as one of their committees,
And the objective is to have a performance review program and not a one-time event.
Right.
That way, there shouldn't be any surprises at the year end on anyone's part. If there are issues, they can be dealt with as they come up, rather than waiting till something explodes.
Exactly.
And in fairness, we've had rather more explosions and changes in the last couple of years than is normal in our population of direct reports. So I guess there might be a reason why it looks like we haven't done anything in a while. Thank you, Ruby. Anything else? Okay, and now WDIC.
Hello, thank you. WDIC has had its last meeting of the year. I guess I briefly reported at the last legislature meeting, but 2 longer things that have come up in the last couple meetings. One is last week. I'm sorry, I woke up in California yesterday and my brain is scrambled. We went over our 2023 goals at our last meeting a couple weeks ago, and one of them had to do, we talked about this with you, Ruby, actually at the beginning of the year, had to do with, it wasn't very concrete, but it had to do with data and what to collect and what to do about it to, learn more about the demographics and the happiness and the belonging and inclusion of our workforce. And one thing that came up there was we didn't exactly know what questions we were asking or what stories to tell. And I think many of us in that conversation were maybe out of the loop of work that had been done several years prior. Leslyn informed us that there used to be some sort of demographics report on employees, and it included information from when employees left, and you may feel free to interrupt if you're more familiar. Yeah, and I guess that stopped happening.
Yes. We changed payroll systems. There used to be a workforce demographic report, which included the number of employees by their race and ethnicity, as well as their gender. There was some veteran information, but not a lot. When we changed from N4 to UKG, those reports were no longer possible. They have just recently worked out some sort of reporting mechanism where we're getting numbers, but we're trying to make sure they're reliable numbers now. But again, some information is not collected. But we're in a better position now than we were at the beginning of the year. So we can give some general information about workforce demographics. But again, it's in those general categories.
Okay, thank you. Thinking forward, so this committee hasn't set 2024 goals or anything. It doesn't have most of the membership is not legislators, so it's the same from year to year. But there was a lot of interest in doing some sort of tracking, marking, info gathering in a useful way that's up to date now. But it's a pretty broad thing that I think is not a natural, like, yes or no vote at a committee meeting. So I guess I'm bringing the question here, like, how would we embark on the process of connecting, like, you know, committee members' consensus desires of what we'd want to see, what they would want to see with your knowledge and information of what is available?
With the hiring of our Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, we did provide some workforce demographics to her, and I think she has a plan as far as disseminating information and coming up with some sort of plan to do it. But I think we can pull pretty accurate reports now, so it's just a matter of you requesting what you need, and we can provide that to you. But again, it's in those general categories. So, and if people don't self-identify, we have a lot of the information about veteran status has not been collected. So that's one of our weak areas.
Okay, good to know. I know many categories have come up at committee that we'd like to see and that you like don't collect, but also, at least in WDIC, we're not doing much, I think, with the data we have now, so we may as well start there.
Right. That was another point that we had talked about, data for what purpose, and because that lets us know what type of data you need.
Does your committee, I'm sorry, go ahead. Does your committee work with Charlene?
We do, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so she's been at the last 2 meetings, or meeting and a half or something.
It would seem to me that she would have the best input as to what sorts of data you might want to collect and how you would permissibly use it.
Okay, thank you.
Else?
Yes, the one other thing that the committee decided to, like, softly embark upon, and this came up during
Does this mean you go on tiptoe and, no, just...
It means, this is my don't get scared that we're overstepping our bounds language. We haven't done anything yet, don't worry.
Okay.
Thank you. So this came up during Native American Heritage Month. We actually, Charlene, speaking of, raised the question of whether Tompkins County has a land acknowledgement and whether we should, as some of our municipalities do. The History Center does, Cornell does. So this is a statement that comes up. I mean, thinking of these other examples might be on their website or might be like delivered before certain meetings or addresses, acknowledging that everything we're doing is taking place on native land, or rather land that was occupied by people in, like here in our case, the Guyacono people, are mostly not the settlers that many but not all of us are descended from, and that land was taken without permission. And there's a reason that I don't write a land acknowledgement by myself.
Well, and I think one question that these land acknowledgements raise in my mind is a legal one. Are we somehow creating some sort of colorable claim to land that has been bought and paid for by our residents and taxpayers?
Yes, so that came up, and what our committee decided we want to do is convene some sort of roundtable discussion, don't know what an event might exactly look like, with interested people, leaders of local indigenous groups, county employees who are interested, whether they're indigenous or native to here or not, our county attorney or acting county attorney, our county administrator, just others, and discuss what might a land acknowledgement or some other movement in the direction of honoring the indigenous heritage and present look like. Because there's some indigenous leaders I've heard from and non-native ones who think that a land acknowledgement is performative and it's not helpful anyway. And so I'm just came from land
understand why they
acknowledgement.
feel that way.
Yes. So that this is a thing we want to do. No concrete stuff yet, but I'm looking for, I guess, like feedback, caution, guidance, I don't know. We report to this committee.
Yeah, and I guess, just personally, because the first thing that I wondered about was the legal implications of that. Before you embark softly or noisily upon this endeavor, and certainly before we have any kind of public meetings about it, that we got some input as to the legal impact of such an agreement and how the existing ones are worded. Because I would certainly not want to create the basis for any kind of litigation about land ownership. Yes?
That's all well and good. I guess it's hard for me to imagine that there's going to be much litigation. And I guess I would be interested to know, have other counties or towns or colleges been sued? It just seems pretty far-fetched. But it's good to get the information. I would be very supportive of this, and I think that you should check out what the options are. I mean, there are numerous organizations that are doing this. It may be performative, but it also could be meaningful. And I think having a conversation about it is at least the place to start.
Well, I don't think that that's inconsistent with just doing some basic legal research. Rich?
Yeah, I think it's worth getting the legal opinion. You know, as a lawyer, you kind of jump to that framework and looking at it. But I also think when I see these, it shouldn't be performative. If you're going to say it, you should mean it. And what do we mean? Is there a moral requirement, regardless of the legal implications, for us to do something? And I don't know. I guess I'd like to understand what that would be what we think we're doing when we.
Well, and that circles
make that kind of
back
a
to the
statement.
legal question, because to recognize that this was historically Native American land, and to make a declaration to that effect, but continue to treat it as if it's our land for all legal intents and purposes, suggests to me that it is performative. I mean, I guess we could debate this all day, and that's not the purpose of this committee, but I think that's why I would just kind of like to have some legal input before we move forward with this. Mike, was that a hand or?
Yeah, that was a hand. Yeah, I think you should be very, very careful here. This issue is in the World Court now. So litigation is still continuing. The Cayugas, the Oneidas, and the Onondagas brought legal action that called into question the ownership of lands in vast swaths of New York State. It cost the people who had transactions, whether they were mortgage transactions for refis or whether they were new purchases, millions and millions of dollars by having to buy title insurance, and with no assurance that the title insurance companies would ever be able to pay off if there was a finding that the ownership of the land was by the Native Americans who brought the action. I think about the complaint when the Onondagas brought it, and they said, well, they were really interested in cleaning up Onondaga Lake and other things, and they were really looking at it from an environmental standpoint, which was very, very commendable. But when you read the legal complaint, what it said was they wanted title to the property. And of course, the eastern part of Tompkins County was in the Onondaga claim. The western part was in the Cayuga claim. The Cayuga claim went 25 years, to the point where they were trying to decide how much money to give to the, for damages to the Cayuga tribe. When the Oneida cases went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court put an end to it by saying, no, it's been too long. And so even the Cayuga case went down. But I would caution folks to say that, you know, we just took it away from them. There's no question that during the Revolution, there was a military action. But after that, there were treaties. And the treaties, you know, they say, well, they didn't pay very much. Well, they paid a lot for what they had back then. And the complaint was that there wasn't a representative from the federal government attending the treaty negotiations. So I would be really, really careful here. I think Deborah's right. This could be laying the groundwork for future legal claims because they were set back by the Supreme Court case in Oneida too. And I don't have any problem with saying, yeah, our friends, the Native Americans, used to own this land. But I have a problem saying that we're on this land that was taken away from them illegally any more than anything was taken away from anybody else through history, through military action. It just happened. So you asked for feedback, and that's my feedback.
Thank you. Just two things. One, I haven't heard the Native people to here say that they used to own the land.
Well, I thought that's what you said.
I may have misspoken. Land ownership is a concept that not all cultures have, at the risk of being that person here. I think something I've been learning is trying to engage in the deep trauma of indigenous settler conflicts and stuff, is that moving at the speed of trust is important. There's a ton to learn. I am probably saying a million wrong things now, but we can
join the club.
Try. Yeah. I had one other thing.
Okay.
No, sorry, just to comment on this is even if something is the question of performative, I think makes sense, but also performative doesn't have to mean meaningless. We perform all the time, and it's sometimes for reasons. Just throwing that out there.
Okay. Did you have another issue?
No, I think that's all. Yeah.
Anything else for Veronica? Thank you. Okay. We got lots of resolutions, but I don't think they're particularly controversial, so perhaps we can move through them quickly because I have got to leave no later than 20 to 5 so I can get to another meeting. If we're still in session, I'm going to turn it over to Lee at that time. All right, so we have Resolution B, authorization to accept funds, New York State Public Health Infrastructure Grant, Whole Health Department, ID 12091. Can I get a motion on that one? Thank you, Lee. Seconded by Rich. Who's going to explain this one? I don't see anybody from the Health Department.
I can take a stab. This is funding that I believe is over 3 years for the Public Health Infrastructure Grant. And they are looking to use this grant in part to hire staff with a knowing that this grant expires in 3 years, they're going to make that individual aware of that at the time of hire. And because there are only certain categories under which they can spend this funding. And this is funding to hire that person beginning January 1, 2024.
Yeah, so that addresses one of my questions, because I wondered what would happen after November 30th of 2027. So it would be a time-limited appointment, okay. And my understanding is that even though this grant dates back to 2022, the money wasn't really authorized till about a month ago, so none of it's been spent. All right. Any other questions about this? Mike?
So is there a plan to use it?
To use the funding
Yeah.
to hire this.
To hire this person.
Is it for this one particular person they're talking about?
Yes.
All right.
My recollection, it's coming back to me now, the only other, one of the other ways that they were encouraged to use these funds were, again, to pay for bonuses for specific titles, which is problematic in a number of areas, not the least of which is that they are now merged with mental health. So instead of doing that, they thought it would be more, they would get more bang for the buck, and it would be a more equitable use of funds to hire a person to try to increase onboarding, training, recruitment for the titles needed in whole health.
Okay, any other questions? Are we ready to vote?
I just had I'm reading this going rapid medical response, but I think we should just vote and
Okay,
carry on.
all in favor? Thank you, that's unanimous. All right, the next one is a bond resolution authoring the issuance of up to $1,178,000 in serial bonds and notes of the County of Tompkins, New York, to pay a portion of the cost of replacement and reconstructing the Midline Road culvert, ID 12098. Can I get a motion? Mike moves, Rich seconds. This seems pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, we're going to advance the money, and then we're going to issue the bonds and pay ourselves back, and yeah. And Lori's going to take care of all of it. Any questions, concerns? I just want to note that this and several other resolutions on this agenda today will require 10 votes of the legislature to pass in case. So when you introduce these, Mike, you want to mention that? All of these bonds and bans, 10 votes. Okay, all in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. The next one, Resolution D, amended and restated bond resolution of the County of Tompkins, New York, adopted December 19th, 2023, amending a resolution dated October 18th, 2022. Can I get a motion on that one? Rich moves, Mike seconds. This one is for, which project is this?
Podunk.
Podunk Road, yeah. Okay. This is just to amend that past resolution to reflect a couple $100,000 in increased costs, but we will not be bonding for that additional monies. So, any questions? All in favor? That's unanimous. And the next one is Resolution C, amended and restated bond resolution of the County of Tompkins, New York, adopted December 19th, 2023, amending a bond resolution adopted October 15th, 2019, to increase the maximum estimated cost of the project and amend the plan of finance to authorize the issuance of additional serial bonds or notes to pay the cost thereof. ID 12094. Can I get a mover on that one, please? Rich moves. Lee seconds. Thank you, gentlemen. Now this one not only amends the former resolution to acknowledge the increased costs, but also allows Lori to issue an additional amount of bonds to pay for it. And this one went up by about 50%, from about 1.6 to 2.4. Why? Does anybody know? Did this go through F&I, Mike?
I don't
Is it
think
going?
so yet. I think
It's going to?
coming through Thursday, I think.
Okay, so we'll get some idea of why it costs so much more.
It was also in the PAR form for budget, yeah. So this was submitted as a
And
project.
in the
bid.
PAR form, it's at the
Yep,
new higher
at the new-
cost?
At the new rate.
Okay,
Mhm,
great.
Yep.
So I guess that's all we need to worry about. Any questions, Rich?
Just assuming that there will be a rational explanation on why the cost changed so much, I will support.
Okay. All right, all in favor? Thank you. And then, Resolution F, a bond resolution authorizing the issuance of up to $1 million in serial bonds and notes of the County of Tompkins, New York, to pay the cost to acquire certain machinery and apparatus for construction and maintenance, ID 12092. Can I get a motion? Thank you, Mike. A second, please, from Amanda. Thank you. And this is to buy very expensive machines. Any questions, concerns? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Resolution H, budget adjustment appropriation from Contingent Fund, Terminal Pay, Department of Probation and Community Justice, ID 12031. Can I get a motion, please? Rich moves, Amanda seconds. Oh, yeah, I did. Well, let's do probation and community justice, and we'll go back to, yeah, sorry, thank you. Okay, any questions? This is pretty standard. This is the low-cost one. When we get to the Department of Emergency Response, I have a question, but, okay, all in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. Now we'll go back to resolution, now that I checked through it, I can't remember what letter it is. G, appropriation from Contingent Fund, Terminal Pay, Department of Emergency Response, ID 12045. Can I get a motion from Amanda, seconded by Rich? Yeah, so I have a question about this. So these terminal pay things, we're actually going to give somebody that amount of money in cash?
5 people. 5 people.
5 people, oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, let me make sure that, but that's how I counted it. There's an emergency services dispatcher, a second dispatcher, a third that was on administrative leave, and then there was somebody promoted that had money coming to them, and a trainee.
Where is that in the packet?
First whereas.
Wow, that's still a pretty hefty.
It's a lot of change in that department.
How do they accrue, is this because they just never take vacation or leave?
I think they've been down in staff, Ruby's nodding, and that they have not had the ability to take a lot of time off, and I think that's led to some of the turnover.
Well, I'm sure they've burned out if that's the case. Well, thanks for explaining that, because when I read that, I was like, holy cow. Okay, all in favor?
I'd have had a stroke if I was up there. They overtime, and it's just been something for the last couple of years
Wow.
coming along.
Okay, thank you. So finally, Resolution I, authorizing 2024 payments for Tompkins Cortland Community College operating budget ID 11966. Mike moves, Amanda seconds. Is there any discussion about this? This is all pretty standard. It's all money we agreed to pay, and it's just the schedule pursuant to which we will make the payments. Rich?
I would just say the reports we've been getting from TC3 have been generally really positive in terms of trends in enrollment, and the financial condition seems to be getting better. As Mike indicated, we didn't have a request to lend money until New York State aid comes in. Maybe we'll still get that, but I think that's yet another indicator.
Well, I'm happy to see that the reports we're getting are showing improving trends, because they've been holding their budget requests from us pretty much stable for a couple of years now, with the warning that next year it's going to get worse. So maybe if this upward trend continues, it won't get very much worse. Was that editorial comment, Mike?
Yes.
Okay.
But I wanted to mention that, they've been digging out of their problem here. And some of the four-year SUNYs are in trouble.
I saw that, yeah.
Cortland, for example, had an $8 million deficit. And I think Fredonia is doing some substantial cutbacks. And I think
Potsdam cut way back, yeah.
And so it's not just the community colleges that are having trouble.
And the state university tuition is, well, I don't know how low it is. I mean, I know somebody who was looking at sending an in-state kid to UB and was complaining about how expensive the tuition was, like $36,000. Well, that's what, yeah, I couldn't have afforded to go there if it had.
A lot of the SUNYs are like $7,000, but then room and board adds to that.
Yeah, I guess that's
But
true.
it's,
Jeez.
I've been looking at them all because I'm going through this with my kids. So the SUNYs are very affordable.
Well, by comparison, yeah.
Yeah, by comparison to any private college. So.
Okay, so we still need to vote on paying Tompkins Cortland Community College. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. And then we have two more resolutions that were on your desk that were added. So there's changes in positions, various departments, ID 12100. Can I get a motion on that, please? Rich moves, Lee seconds. Who's going to take this, Lisa or Ruby?
Okay, I'm the incomparable Ruby. Okay, this is the normal procedure. I call it my New Year's resolution instead of the year-end resolution, but it's the year-end resolution where we catch up with positions that have been that have been created but now need to be authorized legislatively. So we have the creation of new positions, positions who may have had an increase or decrease in hours, whether it's a 47-hour position or 37-hour or 35, and any abolitions of positions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ruby? All in favor? Yeah. We did move it, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Apparently, we all woke up in California yesterday. Okay. And then finally, a resolution to adopt a volunteer benefits program, ID 12103.
Okay.
Seconds, thank you. Ruby?
Yes, this is an attempt or an effort to offer a voluntary benefits package to our employees in the areas of life insurance, critical illness, accident, and hospital indemnity for all eligible employees as a way of supporting or supplementing our employer-paid benefits package.
Okay, so this is not a benefit program for volunteers.
voluntary
Yeah, right.
benefits, benefits that are not included in our normal benefits package. So we would give the employee an opportunity to supplement that package with employee-paid insurance or programs.
Great idea. Okay, any questions for Ruby on this one?
What about changing volunteer to voluntary, just to make that more clear?
You know,
It should be voluntary.
probably
I like
a
that.
good idea. Have you got that, Britt? I assume
It's
that's
voluntary in the first one.
friendly to everyone. So as to avoid confusion.
Yes.
Mike?
Is there a package that we're looking at that we're ready to offer, and how much would it cost an employee?
No, we are looking to work with this broker, Benefit Design Services. They've provided us with some estimates, but we have to look over those estimates and select a provider based upon the cost. But it's usually at a group rate minimal, well, a group rate $23 a month, or depending on what they would select.
How about long-term care?
Well, we have critical illness and hospital indemnity at the moment, an accident, but not long-term care. Would you like one of those to be?
Well, we should be encouraging people to buy long-term care insurance. It's hugely, hugely expensive. And, but I have people in my law office every week that are totally amazed at what it's going to cost for an elderly parent or a spouse or somebody like that to have to go into a nursing home, and what they would have to do with their meager assets to qualify for Medicaid. And I think Cornell offers some way into long-term care insurance, but I just think that it's something we should be trying to encourage. I mean, nursing homes are over $12,000 a month now, and Medicare doesn't pay for it.
I'm honestly not sure that private long-term care insurance is the answer. It's so expensive, and then you can't count on it. Ronnie and I had bought into long-term care insurance when we were in our early 50s. And so we got in when the premiums were at a reasonable rate. And at some point down the road, the company just said, well, this is no longer financially feasible for us. So you can either pay these much, much higher rates, or you can take the benefits that you've accrued so far, which wasn't anywhere close to sufficient to help us out, really, and you can use those at some point in the future. And that apparently is not an unusual turn of events for these companies. So,
Well, I was going to say, there isn't much out there to help people.
no, there isn't.
And you may want to talk with the people at the Office for the Aging about it. They advise people on long-term care insurance.
I'll pick up on that, Mike. 14,000 is what one of the
Up to
local
14.
not-for-profit nursing homes just raised the private pay to last week. And Medicaid was the comment you made. Anything you can do to encourage long-term care, because it does have a direct impact on us, because there's people rolling onto that because of the cost of nursing homes, and we'll be seeing it in the years ahead even more. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Which raises a related issue. I saw an article, I can't remember if it was the Atlantic or the New York Times, that was talking about how for older adults, even people who don't need to be in a care facility, there isn't enough affordable housing for seniors. So just add that to the list of stuff we don't have.
But I will have the broker look into pricing.
It'd be interesting to hear what they have to say.
Okay, we ready to vote on this, on the volunteer benefit? All in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone. That's it for our agenda, and
Can
we
I Can I weigh in for a second?
Sure.
I guess you were going to close real rapidly, and I do
Well,
want-
yeah, I got to get to my next meeting.
Well, and this is for you. As we end December and end this year, I just want to thank you for your stewardship of the committee. Looking at Lori, who's onboarded, and a lot of changes in her office. Norma's move up to a very crucial position, the creation of a budget director or refunding of it. The work that's been done in human resources and the other groups. You've had a very educational year for this committee. We set some pretty ambitious goals, and you've gone through a lot of policies, and we've had a lot of backs and forth on fund balance and so on. But I think we're in a much stronger position than where we started. And you kept us crisp and on point through that process. And I just want to congratulate you for a well-run year.
Oh, thanks. I want to remind you, you're all stuck with me for one more month. And let's not forget Lisa. Thank you for everything you do.
All of the people over there.
Yeah. Except for her.
For me.
She's just
I
trouble.
just showed up. Hey, I showed up on time every
Yeah, that's
meeting.
true. I give you credit for that. We are now adjourned. Thank you.